Awesome. Thank you. Carl's really not that cool, and it's really blinding up here. All right, so I'm Andrea Haydon, again, design strategist. We were going to be talking about service design and the architectural practice. So today's focus, we're going to talk about how do I define service design, because everybody defines it totally different. What my role is at Ratio, how I'm integrating service design into my work, and why is it important. So I first want to ask, so what is service design? So who here knows what service design is, just by raising hands? All right, okay, cool, awesome. So I actually don't like using that term at all, but I will get into that later. So the way I'm going to explain what service design means to me is by hopefully a short story, because we got 20 minutes and I really want to get through all of this because there's something really fun at the end, is with a project that I did right after school, and it was called the PASS Project. So it was a 3-year research study through the Indiana State Department of Health and Haydon School of Art and Design. And it was basically trying to create a better communication tool. This keeps moving. Oops. A better communication tool for them and how they could reach out to a specific crowd. So women between the ages of 14 and 19. Pregnant and or parenting teens between the ages of 14 and 19. And so the goals for this project were to strengthen infrastructure for pregnant and parenting teens in Marion County, reduce pregnancies, decrease high school dropouts, and develop a new method of communication. And so just like at the beginning of any research project, we started out with focus groups. And so we recruited some participants, and I went ahead and volunteered my 21-year-old self to go pick up some of these women. And let's just say they lived in some of the worst areas of Indianapolis. But I felt like it was important for me to truly be able to understand who these are, or who these people are. I have to be able to kind of go and see where they're living. Sorry, this is timed. I'm really sorry I keep going back. So I remember going up to this woman's apartment, and she wouldn't even get into my car until she knew that I was outside. She was peeking through the blinds, and she was on the phone with me, and she was like, "Hey, is that you in your silver Honda Civic?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's me. You can come out." And I remember she had a 3 or 4 month little baby in tow, and she walks and gets into my car, no car seat, nothing. And so we drive over to the Tabernacle, which is where we had our focus groups, and so this is just one woman out of many, but I just thought it was really important to see that they don't have any modes of transportation, no car seats, no knowledge of that. And so we conducted the focus groups, and just like any other standard questions you'd ask, we asked very high-level questions. So one of them being, if there's anything right now, like if some alien came from outer space and could help you right now in this moment, what would that be? And we had one woman say, if I had a book that could tell me everything about life, that's all I would need. And I remember that just tore at me, and I was like, oh my gosh, we have to help these women. This is all they want is a book to tell them everything? That's crazy. So after gathering all of our data, we then hired on 6 other designers from Haydon School of Art and Design, and we locked ourselves in the studios for 2 weeks, and we analyzed our data through personas, challenge mapping, and how might we statements. And so at the end of it, we came up with 3 very different concepts. One of them being the mom bus, which would be a bus that would come to you in your neighborhood and provide you the resources you need as a mother. So whether that's computers to take classes or childcare or just any resources. The next concept we came up with was the interactive art kiosk. And this was one that would be, well, it's obviously digital, so whether this is in a mall or out in public, any mother could go up to it and again, get the resources that she needs anonymously. And then our third was the journal. So this is a modular journal that had a journal, so obviously a journal component to it, a calendar, a camera component, just any way of how we can gather their how they live their lives, I guess. Because we have to remember that we were hired to create a communication tool to kind of gather that data. And so, again, the slides keep progressing here. So we took it back to the same group for the focus groups, but we did user prototyping testing. And we presented all 3 ideas, and the clear winner was the journal. So after 3 years, we came up with the For Real journal. And as I said before, it was modular, so you could rearrange it however you'd like. It included coupons. We had a calendar, 3-month calendar. So every 3 months, they'd have to come back and they turn it into the State Department of Health, which they knew. But what was included in it was self-expression prompts, so either drawing and writing. So some of the writing prompts were, I feel strong when, the hardest part of being a parent is, and again, having this camera aspect. And so when we took this to Lake County, which is Gary, Indiana, we worked with an organization that would then kind of just pass these out. We had women crying, and they're like, this is exactly what I needed. And I think it was right then and there that I knew that this was what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, and how can I impact people through design. And so with all that being said, the design process must begin and end with the user in mind. I think we all have been hearing the word user throughout this entire day, right? And so building on that, my role at Ratio, I'm a design strategist. As Poppy mentioned, as I mentioned, I actually just got promoted at the beginning of this year, so this is a whole new role for me, and I'm really excited to take it on. My job is to help understand our users, to create innovative engagement tools just like the journal, and to be that outside perspective, because everybody kind of gets that tunnel vision, right? When you just need somebody else to kind of take a step back. So a little bit about Ratio. We are a multidisciplinary firm. We have design services from architecture to interior design, economic development, and now service design. We have 4 studios. Indianapolis is our headquarters, Champaign, Chicago, and Raleigh. So I'm going to flip through some of these, some of our work. Since it's Indy Design week, I am going to be only showing Indianapolis work. So some of the stuff you might see that is recognizable. So that Hyatt House just got finished up 2 months ago, right outside of Bankers Life. West Elm Hotel at Bottle Works District is what I should say. Carr headquarters up in Carmel. The Indiana State Museum. Georgia Street improvements. I'm sure some of you guys hung out there during the Super Bowl when it was here in 2012. The Children's Museum of Indianapolis. The Phoenix Theater. And the Indianapolis Zoo Bicentennial Pavilion. And we have multiple projects at the zoo as well. So, okay, cool, yeah, whatever. These are cool spots, I guess, right? But what's the point of all of this? What keeps our clients coming back to us? And it's all about our process. We have a process called Live Design. It's exactly what it sounds like, where we work with all of our stakeholders and clients all in one room, and we use a program called SketchUp, which I'm sure some of you already know what that is. And for example, if somebody's like, man, I don't really like that wall at all. Okay, well, we can move that or we can remove that. And so it actually builds, it creates efficiency in our process and just gets things, it gets everybody to build consensus quicker. So how am I integrating service design? So I'm going to touch on 4 points. So leave behinds, public engagement, design process, and the Ratio toolbox. So when I started at Ratio 5 years ago, I was a graphic designer. And I worked on the marketing team, and whenever we'd go after an RFP or an RFQ, which is request for proposals or request for qualifications, we would then, once we'd been shortlisted for that project, we would then have to go and do an interview. So a part of that process was developing a PowerPoint, some kind of presentation, but then also leaving a leave behind, something that's leaving that lasting impression. And so this is where I got really excited and was like, man, how can we, again, better understand the clients and who we're actually going to be presenting for, and just kind of just be more creative than just giving them a piece of paper with front and back images. And so, without having to go through all of them, this lower left one right here with the Play-Doh, that was for the Canal Playscape project, probably about 4 or 5 years ago. There was a fun group that we were working with, which is the Indianapolis Parks Foundation, and the Arts Council of Indianapolis. And so we got kind of cheesy, and we played off the Play-Doh aspect of saying, hey, let's mold a playscape together. And on the tags, it had a fun play quote. And they absolutely loved it. They freaked out. They were ripping open their jars of Play-Doh during our interview. And it just kind of eliminated those barriers of hey, yeah, we're all on the same page, right? Another way that I have been kind of push the boundaries of service design at Ratio is through public engagement. Any kind of planning firm or architectural firm, you're always doing some kind of public input process, right? So what better than to me just jump in and better understand the communities that we're working with? Going back to the collaboration, so our process again, just making sure that we're asking the right questions and talking to the right people. I mean, there's nothing worse than talking to the wrong people when you're designing a space. And then the ratio toolbox, this is my baby. I'm really excited about this. It's still in the works, but we are in the process of creating a digital toolbox. If you guys are familiar with IDW, they have a design toolbox as well. This is not original at all, but how can we be doing this in the architectural space? So these are just a few examples of some of the tools that are included in the toolkit, as well as ones that we've actually designed custom for certain projects. So it's making us a little unique. So speaking of service design, so this is probably one of our best service design related projects, is our St. Louis University Pius Memorial Library, or it's called SLU. And so kind of going back in the history of libraries, I mean, I'm sure most of you guys, like, these look pretty familiar. I mean, maybe besides the two ones in the corner, those are a little old. But noticing how there's a barrier between you and the staff, right? It's like a fortress. And so how can we be eliminating that? And so some precedent imagery here, looking at what possibly that the Apple Store is doing, right? So kind of doing that whole Genius Bar style, also guide on the side. How can we make sure that people feel comfortable going in, getting a library book or renting some piece of technology? And so these are some of our earlier renderings. So SLU wanted to not just have a library, they wanted a technology commons. And one of the aspects was a makerspace studio. And then again, another earlier rendering of what the front looked like. And so this is what we ended up having at the end. So as you can see, it's student-on-student interaction. We also branded the entire space, which is kind of nice, so it made the whole space seem seamless. The Makerspace studio. And just another shot of the studio. I would have loved to have this when I was in college. So in the end, so the process for this was analyzing the existing systems, envisioning how the future systems could look like, and prototyping the future system, but also then how do we design that physical environment? So why is all of this important? A human-centered approach empowers our clients to make informed decisions that focus on the holistic user experience. And how is all of this connected? The users. That's, I think, the whole theme of this conference. And so, with that being said, you all should have a piece of paper underneath your seats. And so I would like you to do with that piece of paper is to write or draw what you think service design means to you. Or if you think this is totally lame, you can just not do anything, or you can draw your neighbor or your cat. I have a thing for cats. And again, don't think too hard about this. It's just a fun exercise. I wish I had music for this, but I planned this last minute, so sorry. I was like, ah. It's really bright, yeah. All right, I'm gonna give you guys 30 more seconds. Or do you guys need any more time? Raise your hand. No? Okay, so now I want everybody to now, once you're done, to fold it up into a paper airplane. And you can look it up on your phones if you need a reminder. Or if you don't want to do it, you can just crumple it up into a ball. And don't be afraid to collaborate with your neighbors or ask your neighbors if you need help. Or ask me. How are they coming? Oh, that's true. I was like, or I was like, throw it to the aisles or something. Well, I feel like it's probably better if there's not people around here, so when they shoot, they're not hitting anybody. That's good. But yeah, we'll see. I know. Well, we'll see what happens. All right. Okay. So we're gonna go ahead, and on the count of 3, I'm gonna have you guys all throw it at me. If you guys can make it that far. It's actually probably good that there's not a lot of people down here, so sorry, guys. So just in case, I probably should have people like sign some kind of liability waiver. But yeah, so maybe, okay, on the count of 3, again, get your little snowballs or your airplanes, and we're gonna throw it, okay? This way. Okay, so ready? 3, 2, 1. Oh, like so cool! That's awesome. Awesome. Thanks for participating, you guys. Thanks. Just keeps looping.